Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. My name's Ryan. I'm a former commando from the UK, and today we've got another update for Ukraine. Today's date, Monday 24th, and we've got some good news in terms of the deep state map that we've been using has finally updated itself today in the Luhansk region. The counteroffensive up there has shown that there is quite a bit of movement, quite a bit of traction in a positive way, okay, guys, for Ukraine. Still nothing being annotated on the map for the south of the counteroffensive in the southern region of Ukraine, but you know, we know there's things going on there still, and we're going to update you accordingly. We've got a Russian campaign assessment to do, and we've got a bit of news on Twitter, guys. But before we get into it, please like, share, and subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already, and drop a comment below. I look forward to speaking to you guys personally. So let's just jump straight into. So here's the map. I'll just we've rewinded it to the 23rd, and boom, as you can see, not much change there until we zoom in to West Luhansk, and we'll just get that there. If we fast forward slightly, boom, we see massive gains predominantly in this area here. So the areas in particular that we're looking at is Karmaznivka, Novovodian, and Makilivka. I pronounced that terribly wrong. I can't even apologize now. But in terms of the history description, what they've put up today, the armed forces pushed the enemy out of these settlements, them ones we've just mentioned, their troops, Nevsky and Novostov. So these areas in particular, they still haven't pushed them out of here, whether or not it's been updated or not yet. It would look to be likely, bearing in mind if we look at this map here. So they've taken that. Ukraine isn't just going to take it and then do nothing. They're going to take it, then push through. That's what you do as a competent fighting force. And bearing in mind, there's nothing but fields around here anyway. Okay, so they've took the city, they've took the settlement, then they're going to push on through, set up defensive positions within that settlement, and then push troops out slightly. That's what I'd like to see happen. So you've got this to the right-hand side. Novo, we'll call it for short. And then if you look further south, they've took Makivka. Okay, so they've took that. Bearing in mind, they'll have done the same thing. They might not be pushing too far out, but they'll have pushed through that point once they've took it. Now, you've got a major settlement east and west of your position, left and right of your position, depending on which way you're standing. I'm trying to look at the counteroffensive and which way you're going. Okay, so let's just say left and right of you, there's a settlement. Okay, now it will be in Russia's interest, bearing in mind how they've currently been fighting this war. What they've got here is they're effectively surrounded, aren't they? Yeah, so that's their position there. And they've got blue coming in from behind, pardon the pun, in this direction potentially, okay? They can expect it because they've took the villages, the settlements to the left and right of them, okay? So nothing but, you know, fields and stuff going out here. So what I would imagine is going to happen, if it hasn't already happened, is they're going to get the hell out of there in this direction, because to the left of them it will be somewhat defended positions where they don't know where the Ukrainians are going to be coming from, and the same for the right hand side. So it would make perfect sense for them to go, you know what, let's just get the hell out of here, let's head towards this direction, towards the nearest settlement, which will be, you know, something in and around here, Zalyman and these areas. All right, that's what I'd like to see probably happen for Russia, getting the hell out of there. All right, now all of this is just hearsay. It's me just thinking tactically on the ground what I would think would happen there. But bearing all of that in mind, I reckon within the next 24 hours, potentially tomorrow when I'll do this update, this region here will have went from Russian occupation, and the Ukrainians will have overtaken it, guys. That's what I think will happen, and we'll have a new formed line of attack pushing in this direction here, but we'll effectively have a slightly different front line tomorrow. I think this area will have been taken. That being said, what do I think is going to happen? Let's just presume there's going to be not much traction to the north, because we didn't see that much traction today. It's not, well, actually, there is a bit of traction. So this region was taken. So I apologize, right? So we are seeing traction to the north as well. It looks like this whole line could possibly get extended depending on how much Ukraine wants to push. But we've got a few little settlements in this region here, all capable of being overtaken. They've took a major settlement there, pushing the Russians back to this notionary line here. This is where I think the new front line will be within the next few days. This is obviously a major area that they need to take as well. Ploshanka, I think it's called. But, I think there's going to be a lot of land potentially gained when we look at the movement and the capital. If we can capitalise on that, these settlements are not too far away. All right, not too far away. So, and after that, there's a lot of open land, an awful lot of open, sparse land in between them. So once they take these settlements, again, we were speaking about this a few weeks ago, I think they'll just push on through. The major settlements are past that, past the Russian front line. So, yeah, there's quite a bit going on there, troops. Again, not much happening in the south, so I can't really update you on that. Now, let's get into the Kiev Independent on Twitter. Post that came up. All of Ukraine will be free, said President Vladimir Zelensky on the 8th month anniversary of Russia's full-scale invasion of Ukraine. So he's saying that on the 8th month it won't be free. But he's basically, it's a promising positive message, isn't it, that he's trying to give out. He added that Ukrainian success defended its statehood, but the upcoming winter will be the hardest in history. Now, let's get to that. Do you think that the war so far has given us any reason to believe that potentially in the coming months that this will be the hardest winter in history? Is he talking about Ukraine history? If he's talking about Ukraine history, then we could possibly agree with that. But generically speaking about, great wars that's happened in the past, I don't know about that. It depends on how harsh the winter is. Hopefully they don't have too harsh a winter. Now, there's going to be one side who is more affected by the winter than the other. That's just how it goes. There's got to be someone who's affected, right, guys? So my take on it is this. It's going to come down to who's the best prepared for winter. Now, logically thinking, Ukraine, supported by the West, supported mainly, by the big countries, United States, your Great Britain's, your France's and Germany's, that's where most of the funding's coming from. A lot of the infrastructure, weaponry is coming from them countries. I would like to think that they're going to be best suited to fight Russia. And I know Russia is used to, the inhospitable weather of harsh environments and stuff in certain areas of Russia anyway. But that doesn't necessarily mean that the Russian troops will form better on the ground. It's all about, your kit and equipment. Now, I've seen the best soldiers on the planet not do so well in harsh environments if they haven't got the correct kit and equipment. You are literally, to somewhat, heavily relying as a modern day soldier on the kit and equipment that you've got. And although we like to think of ourselves, as professional soldiers, I can speak on my behalf as a commando. Yes, you can operate if you're put in harsh environments and you are the right type of person. You have that grit and that guile within you. But, let's be real here. The weather conditions will take the best man down to his, he'll be soul searching in the best of times if you haven't got the correct kit and equipment. And that's just my professional opinion. I don't care who you are. You can be Rambo. The weather will get you if you're ill prepared. If you haven't got something, like a warm jacket when it's when it's cold, a Gore-Tex jacket when it's raining, you will eventually succumb to the environment. You just have to look at Bravo 20, okay, the SAS, the world's greatest special forces, in my opinion. That's where most of the blueprints came for special forces operations. They derived from the special forces of Great Britain. Bravo 20, fantastic story. If you haven't watched the film, watch it. It's a heroic story. But they were ill prepared for the environment in which they went to. They, actually lost a man to hypothermia because of the weather conditions in the Middle East. Believe it or not, at night it gets very cold in the desert. So we are digressing slightly, but I want to harness this point so you guys really understand. From a professional opinion, the weather it's not going to favour anyone if you're ill prepared. Does that make sense? So, who's been the most ill-prepared of this war so far? I'm going to definitely say Russia on that behalf, and that's not a biased opinion. We just have to look at the way they are, logistically speaking. not the greatest. Bearing in mind they're the second most powerfulest military on the planet, allegedly. We haven't seen the second most powerfulest logistics there is. You haven't seen, the resupply has been terrible. The man management is hideous. The way they resupply their troops, the morale of their troops from senior commanders, it's all really piss poor, if I'm going to be honest with you guys. So do I have reason to believe that the Russians, especially the ones that have just came fresh out of prison to fight in the front lines, are going to be kitted out with the best stuff? Nah, I don't think so. Do I have everything to believe that the Ukrainians are going to be kitted out with the best stuff to fight this war and repel the Russian attacks from the West? Absolutely. We have every reason to believe that. So, in my opinion, I think winter is going to favour Ukraine far more than Russia. I know that's going to sprout a lot of opinions up and people are going to be disagreeing with me on that, but I'm just thinking about the professionalism of what I'm seeing so far. I'm not talking about politics or any of that bullcrap. I'm just telling you how it is, how I think of it as an individual soldier, okay, on the ground. I believe Ukraine will be better prepared for the winter period. So, that being said, if they are the better prepared, I think you'll see actually quite a lot of traction in the winter months for Ukraine. And that's just my personal opinion on that, troops. But enough of my personal opinions. Let's get into the facts from the Russian offensive campaign assessment by the Institute of Study of War. As always, guys, this is released a day before. So, the information is released a day before. Now, the Institute of Study of War is publishing an abbreviated campaign updated today, so it's quite simplified, okay? But it's better for us because we can get through it in quick time. This report focuses on Russian Defense Minister Shoigu's several calls with his Western counterparts and prosperous claims that Ukraine is preparing a false flag dirty bomb attack against Russia, likely to pressure Ukraine into concessions and intimidate NATO. On the battlefield, Ukrainian forces conducted further offensive operations in northeastern Ukraine. Russian forces continued to set conditions for a withdrawal from Kherson. Those developments are summarized briefly and will be covered in more detail tomorrow. So that should come out obviously tomorrow and we'll do an update on that, guys. But what's happening is there's been rumor that there's the Russians are trying to say that the Ukraine is going to push for a false flag operation. I don't know, maybe he's using weapons of mass destruction or something in an area unclear to be able to get NATO's support firmly ingrained into the war. Now, it's not really the best way to go about things when Russia is, stating that they're going to do just that anyway. So I don't know what to believe on that. It's all hearsay, but we've got another couple of paragraphs to get through to come to somewhat a conclusion, guys. I'd like to hear your thoughts in particular on that statement. Now, Russian Defense Minister Sergei Shoigu likely sought to slow or suspend Western military aid to Ukraine and possibly weaken the NATO alliance in scaremongering calls with several NATO defense ministers yesterday. Shoigu separately called his counterparts from France, Turkey, the United Kingdom and the United States yesterday, claiming that Ukraine is preparing to conduct a false flag attack using a dirty bomb, a conventional explosive laced with radioactive material that is not a nuclear weapon, to accuse Russia of using weapons of mass destruction. Now, without reading too much into it, where are they getting the intelligence on that from? To me, it seems a little bit sketchy with the fact that they're wording that with regards, let's be honest with you, why would they be worried about that and the consequences of that when Putin has been threatening with the use of nuclear warheads for as long as he's been in power? Realistically speaking, he's always used that as somewhat of a threat and a scaremongering tactic. So why is he so bothered if other countries were to, do something like this in the first place when he's prepared to use them himself for his own gain? He wasn't worried about NATO intervention then. Why is he worried about NATO intervention now if this was to be the case anyway? That's the thing that I don't really understand. Now, Russian state media amplified this false and ridiculous claim. Russian Ministry of Defense reports on the calls containing slight differences. They state that Shoigu dismissed a claim steady tendencies towards further uncontrolled escalation in Ukraine in the call with his French counterpart, discussed the situation in Ukraine, and made false claims that Ukraine is preparing to use a dirty bomb in his calls with the United Kingdom, France and Turkey, and simply discussed the situation in Ukraine without reference to a dirty bomb in his conversation with the US Secretary of Defense Lloyd Austin. So he's mentioning mentioning it to some people, they're not mentioning it to the others. We're hoping they're not going to speak to each other, I'm guessing. Shoigu last spoke with Secretary Austin on the 21st of October. Representatives from the United States, United Kingdom, and Ukraine categorically denied and condemned Shoigu's false allegations, and US Secretary Austin called his UK counterpart Ben Wallace following the calls with Shoigu. France and Turkey have not issued formal statements as of this writing. Now, the thing that I get worried about this is it almost seems as if they're trying to prepare people for what potentially could come. That's what I think's happening. We've seen that Russia is moving these long-range nuclear warheads closer to Ukraine, which kind of begs belief, really. And when you think about it, it defeats the purpose of having long-range nuclear warheads if he's wanting to move them closer to the battle space. Why do that? That, to me, looks threatening. That's all it is, really. It's, look, we're prepared to use these long-range at close range. It's like defeats the object of it purposefully, I think. But the Kremlin is unlikely to be preparing an imminent false flag dirty bomb attack. Shoigu's claims furthered a long-standing Russian information campaign. The Kremlin has repeatedly claimed that Western states will help Ukraine conduct a false flag weapons of mass destruction attacks since the earliest stages of its invasion of Ukraine in February. The Russian Ministry of Defense claimed it had information that the United States was preparing provocations to accuse the Russian armed forces of using chemical, biological, or tactical nuclear weapons. In April, Putin claimed in his pre-invasion speech on February 24th that Ukraine was preparing for a nuclear attack against Russia, and Russia's state disinformation outlets repeatedly claimed Western states were supporting Ukraine's development of nuclear weapons and planning false flag attacks. I don't know what to believe with all of this crap. There's a lot of back and forth, but, you know, he said, she said, but at the end of the day, you know, Russia's the one going around invading countries, guys. We've only got a few more paragraphs of this. Now, Shoigu's claims likely do not portend Russian preparations to use non-strategic nuclear weapons in Ukraine either. Institute of Study of War previously stated on September 30th that Institute of Study of War cannot forecast the point at which Putin would decide to use nuclear weapons. Such a decision would be inherently personal, but Putin stated red lines for nuclear weapons use have already been crossed in this war several times over without a Russian nuclear escalation. Okay, so I think what he's trying to refer to there is the support from NATO. But, you know, irrespective of your beliefs and stuff, you can't go around invading countries. You can't do that. And that's what he did. And, you know, don't be surprised if other countries want to support that invaded country. It's like, you know, you can't go around land grabbing. You can't do that. It's not like the Middle Ages anymore, you know. So, yes, there's been escalations, in my opinion, appropriately to the escalation that, you know, a country has invaded another country and there's innocent lives being taken in the process. So I think they've quite proportionate, if I'm honest with you, and the fact that NATO is supporting Ukraine and Ukraine are quite effective with you know, that support, it obviously going to piss Putin off a little bit, isn't it, really? So yeah, I think it's in terms of, you know, several times the border for, you know, has been crossed, as he's saying, to justify nuclear escalation. It hasn't really. It's just him spitting his dummy out and going, well, actually, you know what, we don't like not winning, so we're prepared to escalate it. You know, it's how you define it, though. Now, Russia does not need, under formal Russian nuclear doctrine, a further event to justify nuclear weapons use. So what that's saying is they don't need those excuses. They can just use them according to Russian doctrine. Ukraine is not apparently on the verge of tipping some new Russian red line. On the other hand, that might cause Putin to use non-strategic nuclear weapons against it at this time. Shoigu's comments are thus unlikely to presage a nuclear terror attack against one or more major Ukrainian population centers or critical infrastructure in hopes of shocking Ukraine into surrender or the West into cutting off aid to Ukraine. Now, this is an interesting question. Do you think if on either side weapons of mass destruction were used, do you think that would suddenly make the West go, oh, let's just stop our support? I actually think it would escalate things. So, you know, the use of this, you know, truly leads us into something that looks like World War III. And I don't like using that term loosely because, it's a serious thing, isn't it? But yeah, I don't really think that. Yeah, I don't think NATO would start cutting off aid to Ukraine if they suddenly, if nuclear weapons were used. I think it would actually increase tensions around the world drastically. You would see countries who just didn't care less about this becoming worried because this affects everyone if it goes that far. Now, such attacks would be highly unlikely to force Ukraine or the West to surrender. We just said that, as Ukraine's government and people have repeatedly demonstrated their will to continue fighting, and the West would find it very challenging simply to surrender in the face of such horrific acts because of the presented such surrender would set. Shoigu's calls and Russian state media's amplifications of false dirty bomb threats are therefore likely intended to intimidate Western states into cutting or limiting supports for Ukraine as Russia faces continued military setbacks and the likely less likely of Western coercion by the end of this year. Exactly what we were talking about, troops, in terms of we're not winning, we're going to escalate it, or at least we're going to threaten with the escalation of it. It's a tactic that I genuinely believe this war has made people realize a lot about Russia. Okay, this tactic and this rhetoric from Russia has made people wake up, especially in this war, that, hey, actually, your bark is bigger than your bite in this case. And again, I'll stick with my statement that I made at the beginning of this war, and I've continued to say during. I don't think weapons of mass destruction, nuclear warheads, will be used by Putin. I don't think that's the aim. He knows that the consequences of doing such an act would be the end of things potentially for a lot of people. So it's not happening, guys. It's just a threat. The bark is bigger than the bite. But the Institute of Study of War has assessed since May that Putin seeks to force Ukraine to accept his terms and deter continued Western support for Ukraine through nuclear brinksmanship. The recipients of Shoigu's calls are notable. The Kremlin has repeatedly framed the US and the UK as Ukraine's primary backers and the enablers of what it claims are aggressive policies towards Russia, while France and Turkey have, to varying degrees, framed themselves as mediators in the conflict. Shoigu's round of calls was likely further Russian saber-rattling to intimidate Ukraine's Western supporters as possibly widens fissures with the NATO alliance, not conditions set for imminent nuclear use. And in truth, I literally believe that last statement there, not conditions setting for imminent nuclear use. I think the threat of it is something that they're more interested in to hopefully stop support to Ukraine from, the major supporting countries, because it's affecting their progress, and affecting their progress is hindering their ability to clear and complete their objective, which is to take Ukraine back to Russia, or self-proclaimed take it back, And it's not working. It's not working at the same pace in which they originally thought it was going to happen either. So the pace of things are slowing down. They're running out. You got to think logistically speaking with Russia. Russia haven't got the ability to resupply forever, okay? And they haven't got the Western support from pretty much most countries, bar, say, India. But they can't survive on India alone, and China, granted. But yeah, this is it's possibly going to end up being a bit of a long drawn out war. This, I actually thought it would be over by the end of this year. I generally think we'll be doing these updates well and truly into next year, but I think the pace of things will slow right down until it's just, a weekly news bulletin with the odd thing happening. That's what I think's going to happen, But I might be wrong, troops. Hey, guys, if you enjoyed this take on today's Ukraine update, then please like, share, and subscribe to the channel. And if you want to support me on Patreon, please do so. Link is in the description. We're now on Rumble as well. And if you want to become a member, just hit the join button, troops, okay? All the support is greatly appreciated. But most things, the most important thing for you guys to do is like, share, and subscribe to the channel. That's the main thing. If you do that, then I'll be a happy man. Guys, thank you so much wherever you are. Stay blessed, stay safe, and I'll see you in the next video. Take it easy, troops. I'll see you next time. Thank you.